Hello everyone, this is Shiv Prem, a legal intern at Lexis and Company, and currently pursuing BLLB honors from Central University of South Bihar. We are discussing today the contract of indemnity. This is the second part. In the first part, I had gone through the contract of indemnity, its position in India, and in this part, I will be discussing about the position in England and further various rights given to the promisee or indemnifier, indemnity holder, and at last I will be going to the some difference between the contract of indemnity and the contract of guarantee. So let us start with the position in England. What is the position of the contract of indemnity in England? As we had seen in the case Moreshwar, Garyan Moreshwar versus Moreshwar Madan, Canada Justice has given the example of the England. So let us see what is the position in England. Under this English law, the word indemnity has a wider meaning. It includes a contract to save the promisee from a loss, whether it is caused by human agency or any other events like an accident or fire. It includes the contract of the insurance except life insurance. Life insurance contracts are, however, not a contract of indemnity because in such a contract, different considerations apply. A contract of life insurance, for instance, may provide the payment of a certain sum of money either on the death of a person or on the expiry of a stipulated period of time. In such cases, the question of amount of loss suffered by the insured or indemnity for the same does not arise. There has been a great controversy regarding the point as to whether the indemnifier can ask for indemnity before the indemnity holder has actually suffered the loss, or his liability arises only after the loss has been suffered by the indemnity holder. According to the English law, the indemnity holder can only ask for the damages after the loss has been actually suffered by the indemnity holder. This creates a great hardship on the pocket of the indemnity holder in those cases where the indemnity holder was not in a position to meet the claims out of his pocket. So, the relief was provided to the indemnity holder by the Court of Equity, and the rule evolved by the Court of Equity that it was no more necessary for the indemnity holder to be indemnified before he might be indemnified. The Law Commission of India, in his report, has recommended the amendment of Section 124. According to its recommendation, the definition of the contract of indemnity in Section 124 be expanded to incorporate cases of loss caused by events which can or may not depend on the conduct of a person. It should also provide clearly that the promise can also be implied. Now let us see some rights. Rights of the promisee, the indemnified, or the indemnity holder. As per Section 125 of the Indian Contract Act 1822, the subsequent rights are available to the promisee, the indemnified, and the indemnity holder against the promiser or indemnifier, provided he has acted within the scope of his authority. Now let us see the right to recover damages paid during a suit. It is given in Section 125 Clause 1. An indemnity holder has the right to get over the indemnification of all the damages which he could also be compelled to pay in any suit in respect of any interest which the contract of indemnity applies. Now let us see the right to recover costs incurred to defending a suit. This one is given in Section 125 Clause 2. An indemnity holder has the proper to get over the indemnifier all costs which he could also be compelled to pay in any such suit, if in bringing or defending it he did not contravene the orders of the promiser and acted because it would be prudent for him to act within the absence of any contract of indemnity, or if the promiser authorized him to bring or defend the suit. Now let us see the right to recover sums. paid under the compromise. This one is given under section 125 clause 3. An indemnity holder also has the proper to get over the indemnifier all sums which he may have paid under the terms of any compromise of any such suit, if the compromise was not contrary to the orders of the promisor and was one which is it might be prudent for the promisee to form within the absence of any contract of indemnity, or if the promisor or authorized him to compromise the suit. Now let us see some difference between the contract of indemnity and the contract of guarantee. The contract of indemnity refers to a contract by which one party promises to save the other from the loss caused by the conduct of the promisor or any other person, where the contract of guarantee refers to a contract to perform the promise or discharge the liability of a third person in the case of his default. In the contract of indemnity, the liability of the promisor is primary, but in the contract of guarantee, the contract between the indemnifier and the indemnity holder is express and specific, and contract between the surety and the principal debtor is simply implied, and between the creditor and the principal debtor is expressed. In the contract of indemnity, there is only one agreement, that is agreement between the indemnifier and indemnity holder. And in contract of guarantee, there are three agreements, that is agreements between the creditor and the principal debtor, the creditor and the surety and the principal debtor. Contract of indemnity protects the promisee from loss. Contract of guarantee is for the surety of the creditor. In the contract of indemnity, the promisor cannot file any suit against the third party until and unless the promisee relinquishes his rights in the favor of the promisor. Whereas in the contract of guarantee, the surety does not require any relinquishment for filing of suit. The surety gets the proper to file suit against the principal debtor as and when the surety pays the debt. That's all for now. Let us meet in the next session with a different topic, and please do like and subscribe the channel. Thank you.